The trap was set, but the screams were not from beasts. The jungle was silent but heavy. The air was thick with heat and tension. Trees towered above like watching giants, and the only sound was the soft humming of human machines. The team of explorers had been tracking dangerous alien beasts for 3 nights now, and today they had finally set the perfect trap. Motion sensors surrounded the area, and a glowing bait cube sat in the center. Pulsing gently in the dark, Captain Ryan adjusted his helmet and whispered through his gums, "We wait and see who takes the bait." He'd been on many missions before, but something about this planet felt different. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was too still, too controlled, as if the jungle itself was waiting. For something. Beside him stood Lena, the tech specialist. Her eyes stayed fixed on the screen in her hands, watching the blinking sensors. Each one told a story of movement, of life near the trap. For 2 hours nothing changed, then suddenly sensor 4 lit up. A low beep echoed in their ears. "Contact," she whispered, but her voice trembled. Team rushed through the thick vines, weapons drawn, lights cutting through the shadows. When they reached the trap, everyone froze. The bait cube was untouched. But inside the trap's energy field were 3 figures, small, thin, and shaking. Not beasts, not monsters. Children. Captain Ryan lowered his weapon in shock. They looked like alien girls, skin a pale shade of blue, hair tangled and dirty. Their arms were chained together and their faces covered in bruises and dirt. One of them couldn't even lift her head. The oldest looked at the humans with wide, fearful eyes. "Please," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Please help us." Lena dropped to her knees outside the trap and disabled the energy field. The girls didn't move even when the field faded. It was only when Lena stepped forward with hands raised that the oldest girl reached out slowly. She touched Lena's hand as if checking if she was real. "Who did this to you?" Ryan asked gently. The girl didn't answer. Instead she looked toward the jungle behind them. Her lips moved but no sound came. The humans gave the girls water and food from their packs. They devoured the food like they hadn't eaten in days. The youngest started crying softly, the sound weak and heartbreaking. Lena tried to comfort her, wrapping a blanket around her small shoulders. "We came here to catch wild beasts," Ryan muttered to himself. "But what kind of monster chains up children and leaves them in a trap?" The girls were still scared. One kept glancing over her shoulder again and again. At one point she whispered something in a language the translator didn't recognize. The others shivered when they heard it. "She said someone is watching us," Lena said after replaying the words. "She said he waits in the dark that night." The team brought the girls back to their base camp. It was a temporary setup with energy walls and auto turrets. Nothing fancy but safe enough. At least they hoped. One of the guards, Corporal Jin, asked if they should call for extraction. Ryan shook his head. "Not yet. We don't know who's out there or how close they are. And these girls aren't just survivors. They're a warning. Something terrible happened here." As the team rested, the 3 alien girls stayed close together. They didn't speak much, only whispered to each other in their strange, soft language. The youngest one stared at the fire as if afraid it might vanish. Her small hands clutched the blanket tightly. Later that night, Lena found one of the girls standing at the edge of the camp, staring into the trees. Her eyes didn't blink. "Do you see something?" Lena asked. The girl didn't turn around. She only said one word, "He knows." A chill ran through Lena's body. She looked out into the jungle but saw nothing. No movement, no light, no sound. But something deep in her bones told her the girl was right. The trap was never meant for beasts. It was left to catch attention, to send a message, maybe to attract help, maybe to lure hunters into becoming prey. And now the humans had walked straight into it. As the camp grew quiet and the stars began to rise over the alien sky, the jungle waited, and somewhere in the dark eyes were watching. The scream that echoed an hour later did not come from a beast. It was human, and it was already too late to stop what had begun. The scream echoed through the jungle, and by the time the humans reached the sound, Corporal Jin was gone. Only his helmet remained resting in the dirt, with its lights still blinking. No blood, no tracks, just silence again. The jungle had swallowed him whole. Captain Ryan scanned the area with his weapon ready, but there was nothing to shoot. The Motion sensors blinked erratically, as if something invisible had passed through them. Lena checked the readings again and again, but the data made no sense. Whatever took Jin was fast, silent, and not registered as a known life form. Alien girls sat close to the fire, watching with wide, terrified eyes. The youngest girl clung to the middle one, hiding her face in her arm. The oldest girl finally spoke softly in broken galactic common. "He comes when we sleep. He has no face." Rayan crouched beside her. "Who is he? Tell me what you know." She looked at him, as if deciding whether to trust him. Her hands trembled as she lifted one to point at the sky. "He was made, not born. He smells fear and follows pain." Lena translated slowly. "They said he's not a beast or a man. He's something else, something made to track and take." The team reinforced the camp with stronger energy fields and mounted thermal cameras on every post. But deep down, everyone felt it. Whatever was out there didn't care about technology or traps. They had weapons, but were fighting a ghost. That night no one slept. The alien girls remained inside the center tent, with Lena watching over them. The middle girl had a strange scar on her neck, glowing faintly when touched. She winced and cried when Lena brushed her hand against it. "It's a tracker," Lena whispered. Rayan looked at it under his scanner. It wasn't just a scar, it was a deep implant emitting weak but steady pulses. Someone or something still knew exactly where they were. "We have to remove it," Rayan said. But the girls shrieked when they brought out the med tools. The oldest girl stepped between them, shaking her head. "No, cut it. No, she dies." Lena pulled back, shocked. "Is it tied to her life signs?" The oldest nodded slowly, eyes haunted. "She dies. He stops watching. Then we leave the tracker," Rayan decided quietly. "But we changed locations. Now by sunrise the humans packed everything and moved deeper into the jungle, searching for a hidden cave marked on old maps." The alien girls led the way, avoiding paths they said were watched. They didn't run like lost children. They moved like survivors who had done this before. Inside the cave, the air was cool, and the walls thick with metal ore, good for blocking signals. Rayan hoped. They set up a smaller camp inside, using portable lights and emergency rations. Lena gave each girl a warm drink, trying to ease their fear. The middle girl finally spoke that night in a clearer voice. Her name was Ellie, and the oldest was Kari. The youngest never gave her name, only stared silently with deep violet eyes. Kari explained that their ship had crashed months ago, far beyond the western ridges. Most of their people died on impact. The survivors tried to build a shelter, but then the hunters came. "Collectors," Lena whispered in horror. Kari nodded slowly. "Not just collectors, something worse. They sold us to him. We don't know his name, but we call him the smell of blood." She explained that he wasn't like the others. He didn't speak, didn't trade, didn't even kill for hunger. He just took whatever suffered the most, left the rest in fear, and waited. Then returned when the pain grew again. Rayan looked at the girls' bruises and the chains they had worn in the trap, his hands clenched into fists. This wasn't an accident, it was a setup. Someone was still using them as bait. He looked at Lena. "Do you think he's still following the tracker? If we block the signal, maybe not. But I don't know how long we can hide," she said softly as the fire flickered inside the cave, and the girls finally drifted to sleep. Rayan sat at the entrance, rifle in hand. Every sound made him turn. Every whisper of wind felt like breath on his neck. But the jungle was quiet, too quiet, and that silence now screamed louder than any beast ever could. In the distance far beyond the cave, something clicked against the stones, a low tapping, rhythmic like claws against rock. Kari opened her eyes, suddenly wide awake, and whispered to Rayan, "He's near," and this time they all knew running wouldn't save them. The tapping grew louder, like bones hitting stone, steady, slow, and patient. Captain Rayan raised his rifle, eyes fixed on the dark entrance of the cave. The others followed his lead. Lena grabbed the alien girls, pulling them gently behind a pile of supply crates. The youngest girl began to tremble again, but made no sound, not even a whimper, as if fear had already drained her dry. For a long minute nothing moved. The cave was cold, the fire crackling quietly behind them. Then the sound stopped. Not because it was gone, but because it was there. Something was watching them from the edge of the dark, something too smart to be seen. Suddenly, the lights flickered for a second, just a blink, and that was enough. When the backup lights came on, one of the outer drones was gone, ripped from its anchor and dragged into the shadows. No alarm, no explosion, just quiet, silent removal. Rayan motioned for everyone to stay low. He placed a motion detector on the cave floor and waited. A few seconds later, the screen lit up. Not just one movement, but several around the cave, like a circle closing. In we're surrounded, he whispered, eyes narrowing. But nothing's breaking through yet. Kari, the oldest alien girl, leaned toward him, whispering low in his ear, if he can't reach us, he will wait. He always waits. He wants us scared. Lena scanned the cave for weaknesses. They had solid walls and heavy rock above. No easy entrance points except the front. But if those movements outside weren't animals, then they were something worse, something trained. Ellie, the middle girl, stepped forward slowly and touched the rock wall with her glowing scar. The light from her implant dimmed and then pulsed softly, like it was calling to something. No one knew what it meant until she turned around and said softly, he's not here for me, he's here for her. She pointed at the youngest girl, still curled up under a blanket. Her eyes were open wide and fixed on the far corner of the cave, but it wasn't fear. In her gaze, it was anger. Her voice came out quiet and strange. I remember him. Froze. Rayan moved closer. You've seen him before. She nodded slowly. He took my mother. He made us watch. We ran and hid, but he followed only me. The others he left behind. He wants me because I didn't cry. Rayan looked at her small face and saw something strange. Not just trauma, but defiance. She was not just a victim. She was something else. Something that had survived, something that had refused to break. What's your name? He asked gently. The girl looked up into his eyes and said, Lyra. My name is Lyra. Outside the cave, the wind picked up, howling through the jungle like a scream. That's when the first shadow appeared at the entrance. It wasn't a man, not a beast either. It was tall, thin, wrapped in tight armor that looked alive, glowing with red lines like veins pulsing under skin. Its face was hidden by a mask with no eyes, no mouth, only smooth black metal. The collectors, Rayan muttered, gripping his rifle. But this one was different. It didn't move like the others. It stood completely still, then tilted its head as if listening. Kari hissed, that's not one of the normal hunters. That's one of his eyes, a puppet. Suddenly the thing stepped forward silently, and a small dart shot from its wrist. It hit the floor near Rayan and sizzled with acid. He fired instantly, the bullet smashing into the creature's chest. But it didn't fall. Instead, it staggered back like a puppet on strings before collapsing into a pile of metal and bones. That's when the real sound began, a distant growl, low, deep, vibrating through the ground. The jungle fell silent again, as if even the trees were afraid. Lyra stood slowly, eyes glowing faint purple. I have to face him, she said quietly. Rayan stepped in front of her. No one's going alone. If he wants to play games, we end it here. Lena handed Lyra a small scanner. Look at this and tell me if anything feels familiar. Lyra held it and pressed one button. The screen blinked, then she nodded slowly. He's near but weak. He doesn't come himself unless he's sure we're afraid. Then we don't give him fear. Rayan said we give him fire. The team placed mines at the cave entrance and set up pulse charges near the rocks. Lena jammed the tracker signal by rerouting it through a fake frequency, making it look like Lyra was fleeing north through the jungle. The trap was ready. This time not for beasts, not for children, but for something that had hunted too long without fear of being hunted back. As the night deepened and stars blinked coldly overhead, the cave waited and the fire inside grew strong. Shadows moved again just beyond the rock walls, and Lyra stood tall beside the humans, not as prey, but as the one who remembered. And outside, something old and evil moved through the trees, knowing for the first time it was walking into danger. The jungle outside. The cave pulsed with a strange rhythm, like the heartbeat of something ancient, and awake. The humans stayed low, weapons charged, the scent of smoke and metal filling the cold air. Lyra stood still beside Captain Rayan, her small frame calm, yet burning with something fierce. She no longer looked like a scared girl in chains. She looked like a warning. The trap was set and the bait had changed. This time the hunters were not chasing frightened children. They were walking into a fire built by people who refused to run. Lena watched the scanners closely, the fake signal showing Lyra's escape had been broadcasting for 15 minutes now, and already multiple entities were chasing the wrong trail. But the one they wanted, the one Lyra feared, the one who wore no face, had not moved. He's not fooled, she said quietly. He's smarter than them. He doesn't chase. He waits. Kari nodded, sitting near the fire, her hand tightly gripping a metal rod sharpened at one end. He wants us to be tired, weak. That's when he comes. Rayan looked toward the mouth of the cave. The mines were armed, the turrets on auto-target mode. The rock walls behind them had no clear exit, but they had chosen this place for one reason. The ore inside these stones could block scanners, even psychic tracking. They were not invisible, but they were close still. Something bothered Rayan. They had prepared for an enemy they couldn't see, but what if it was already here? What if it was never out there? He walked back to Lyra, who now stood with her hand on the stone wall, eyes closed as if listening. Her face was unreadable. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded softly but didn't open her eyes. "I can hear him now. He's not near, but not far. He's dreaming of pain." Rayan felt a chill climb his spine. "How do you know?" Lyra finally opened her eyes and said, "Because he made me like him once. I remember how he sees." Before he could ask more, a high-pitched tone rang out from Lena's console. She looked down and her face went pale. One of the mines just triggered, but nothing was on the motion scanner. Something got through without being seen. Rayan raised his weapon. Lena switched to heat vision. She tapped rapidly, and the display changed, revealing a figure crouching low near the left cave wall. Its body was cold, almost blending into the stone, but a faint glow outlined its arms and head. "It's here," he whispered. The turrets snapped to life, firing bursts of light, but the figure leapt high, clinging to the cave ceiling with claws that scraped like knives. It dropped into the shadows and vanished, grabbed a flare, and threw it toward the sound. The cave burst with red light, and for a moment, the figure was visible, tall, skeletal, wrapped in armor that looked stitched from bones and metal. Its head twisted unnaturally sideways, then locked eyes with Lyra. She didn't flinch. She stepped forward and shouted, "You don't scare me anymore." The creature tilted its head again as if amused. Then it charged. Rayan stepped in front, firing 3 rounds. The bullets hit but didn't slow it. Lena activated the pulse mines, and a thunderclap exploded from the cave floor, throwing the creature back against the wall. Kari rushed forward, stabbing with her sharpened rod, and for the first time the creature made a sound. Not a scream, but a sharp clicking hiss like stone breaking. "It's not invincible," Lena shouted. "Hit the joints." The armors fused there. The team fought hard, striking low, dodging fast, but the creature was faster. It struck Jin's replacement across the chest, sending him flying. Soldier hit the wall and didn't move. Lyra knelt beside the fallen man, placing her hand over his chest. She closed her eyes and whispered something in her native tongue. Soft light flowed from her palm, and the soldier gasped, waking up with wide eyes. "What did you just do?" Rayan asked. Stunned Lyra looked up. "There's a part of him in me too. I can take pain and give it away." The creature roared, then reeled, this time louder than thunder, shaking the entire cave. It lunged for Lyra, but Kari and Rayan tackled it midair, forcing it down as Lena jammed an electric spike into its back. The creature shrieked and thrashed as light cracked from its body. Its armor began to fall away, revealing skin underneath, raw and damaged and marked with strange carving symbols that looked like chains. "It was made," Rayan whispered again. "Someone built it, someone sent it." Creature tried to crawl away, but Lyra stepped forward, her hands glowing. "I remember you now. You watched my mother die. You waited for me to scream, but I didn't." Shush. The creature's head and light poured from her fingers. It shivered once, then froze. A final hiss escaped its throat before it went still. Silence returned to the cave. No one spoke for a long moment. Then Lena said softly, "I think it's over." Lyra looked at her face, calm yet tired. "He was not the only one. There are more, but now they know we fight back." Rayan nodded, gripping her shoulder. "You're not bait anymore. You're fire, and outside in the jungle where The shadows once ruled something darker, had felt fear for the first time. The sun rose slowly over the dense alien jungle, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the leaves. Inside the cave, the fire had burned low, but no one slept. The air was thick with silence, not peaceful, but heavy like the calm after. A battle that wasn't truly won. Lyra sat near the dying flames, her eyes fixed on the remains of the creature, its body now cold and still. Its armor had crumbled into dust, and its twisted limbs lay stiff like broken branches. Captain Rayan paced quietly nearby, unable to stop replaying the fight in his mind. They had faced death and survived, but it felt more like a test than a victory. Carrie knelt beside the body, her hand hovering just above its chest. "Look," she said, tracing the strange symbols carved into its flesh. "These aren't wounds. They're brands." Lena scanned the body with her tablet. Her eyes narrowed. This wasn't a hunter by choice. It was made to be one, every nerve wired, every bone reinforced. Someone built this thing to track feel, pain, and deliver fear. And leaned over and stared at the symbols. Some looked like numbers, others like chains, all burned deep into the skin. Whoever did this didn't just create a monster. They made a message then. Why send it after children? He asked quietly. What did they want? Lyra stood slowly, brushing ash from her hands. Her voice was calm but sharp like a blade. "Because we were easier to break. They thought if they destroyed the young, the rest would kneel, but you didn't," Lena said softly. Looking at her, "No," Lyra answered. "I learned how to hurt him without fear. That's why he came back." Team gathered around as Lena pulled up a map of the region, cross-referencing the energy readings from the implant in Lyra's neck. She had found something, a signal pulse repeating every 8 hours on the far side of the ridge. "It's not just a tracker," she explained. "It's a call, a ping to something buried underground. It might be a base or a vault. Maybe where more of these things are stored." Ryan looked at the map. "Then that's where we go." Kari stepped forward. "If we go there, we may find more like him. Worse maybe, or we end this," Ryan said. "We don't leave others to suffer like you did." With quick preparation, the team packed up. The cave had served its purpose, but staying meant waiting to be hunted again. Lyra walked without hesitation, leading them through the thick jungle. Her steps light, her eyes sharp, every sound, every scent she noticed before the others. They reached the ridge by midday. Its steep face rose from the jungle like a giant wall, but there was an old tunnel hidden beneath moss and stone, partially collapsed. The entrance reeked of rust and something older, something like burned flesh and wet soil. As they moved through the tunnel's strange markings covered the walls, glowing faintly red. The symbols matched those found on the creature's body, but these were larger, pulsing like veins in stone. Arayan whispered, "These weren't just hunters. This whole place was alive. Once a factory." Maybe the air grew colder the deeper they went, until they reached a large chamber buried beneath layers of rock and metal. In the center stood a glass pod shattered from the inside. "This is where he came from," Lena said, kneeling beside it. Lyra stepped forward, placing her hand on the cracked glass. Her expression hardened. "They made him here, but he wasn't the only one." Floor trembled, a faint vibration moving up through their boots. A warning or a signal, they couldn't tell. But everyone raised their weapons. From the shadows came a shape smaller than the last creature, but just as twisted. It didn't attack. It limped forward, dragging one leg, its arms bound in chains that hummed with energy, its eyes wide, not with rage, but with fear. "Help," it whispered in a voice dry and cracked. "Not like him. I didn't kill them. Please." Akari lowered her weapon, slowly stepping closer. "Are you one of them?" It shook its head violently. "No, I was taken. I was changed. I fought him. I failed." Lyra knelt beside the creature, looking into its eyes. "You remember your name?" Taran, it said, barely able to speak. "My name was Taran before." Lena scanned him quickly. Confirmed similar implants, but different coding. His body's rejecting them. His DNA is fighting back. Rayan looked around the chamber. "We found something more dangerous than weapons. We found proof." Taran coughed, his eyes desperate. "He's not dead. Not fully. He'll come again from the place beneath. This is just the skin before anyone could react." The ground cracked and a sharp energy burst from beneath the pod, throwing everyone back. A voice echoed through the chamber low and without form. "You cannot destroy what does not bleed." Rayan stood up slowly, dragging Lyra behind. "Cover, we need to leave now. This place isn't a lab. It's a Gatakari." Helped Taran up as he struggled to walk, but he looked into her eyes and said, "If you run, he will find others. You have to seal it, burn it, all of it." Outside, the jungle shook as something deep below began to stir. The trap they found had been only one piece of a much larger horror, and the real hunt had just begun. The earth rumbled beneath their feet as the team scrambled out of the underground chamber. The trees above shook violently as if some buried beast was stretching awake after years of restless sleep. Captain Rayan led the way, his voice sharp through the cums. "Move fast, no turning back. Keep your eyes up." Taran limped beside Kari, barely able to walk, but he refused to stop. His skin had gone pale, veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. The rejected implants in his body were burning out, but he kept his grip on the stun blade they had given him. "If I fall," he muttered, "burn me before I change." Lena kept glancing at the scanner in her hand. The signal behind them pulsed like a heartbeat, slower now, but deeper, like something counting down. Lyra ran just behind Rayan, her small body moving quickly through the brush, but her mind was elsewhere. She could feel the thing below them, still stirring, still breathing. It was not just one creature, but a hive mind, a whispering storm of pain and memories. She could hear them now, broken voices begging for release. "We can't just run," she said, suddenly stopping. Everyone froze behind her, panting, and wide-eyed. Rain turned. "What do you mean?" She looked at him, her eyes glowing softly with that same faint violet hue from before. "This place, it's not just a lab. It's a prison, a seed buried in pain, and it's growing faster now because I'm awake." The forest fell silent around them. Even the birds were gone. Lena stepped forward. "Are you saying it's feeding on you?" "Yes," Lyra said calmly. "But I also know how to starve it." Kari shook her head. "That thing nearly killed us, and there are more coming. If we go back, it's suicide." "We don't go back," Rayan said slowly. "We end it from here. We burn the whole ridge, bury the tunnels, bring down the mountain." "But how?" Lena asked. "We don't have enough explosives to take out something that deep." Taran raised his head slowly. "There's fuel lines under the ridge from the old mining drills. They still run hot, buried deep. If you ignite them from both ends, they'll turn the whole base into a furnace." Rayan looked at the map. "If we split into 2 teams, we can set charges at each point, but it has to be perfect. No second chances." Kari volunteered first. "I'll take the north line with Taran. We've got the heavier gear." Rayan nodded. "I'll take the south with Lena and Lyra. We set the timer, then fall back to the ridgeline for Evakaz." They moved quickly through the jungle. Every step felt heavier. The wind had changed, now warmer, more humid, like breath against their necks. Even the trees seemed to lean in, listening. Watching at the fuel line junctions, the teens worked fast, sweating through armor dirt, covering their faces. Rayan planted the charges deep while Lyra watched the forest around them. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but something deeper. She could feel the hive trying to speak to her, showing her images of her mother, trapped voices of others, begging her not to destroy it, promises of power, whispers of home. But she closed her mind and whispered back, "You took everything from me. Now I take it from you." On the north side, Kari and Taran reached the secondary junction. Just as they set the final charge, the ground split open behind them. A new figure emerged, not armored, not made of metal, but of pure bone and shadow, its face shifting like smoke. Taran raised his blade and shouted, "Go now, get clear. I'll hold it." Kari grabbed his arm. "No. You're not dying today." He smiled painfully. "I already did. They just forgot to bury me." Before she could argue, he charged into the creature, stabbing deep as energy burst around them. Kari turned and ran, hearing only the sound of fire and light crashing behind here. On the other side, Rayan and Lena finished their setup. Lyra stood at the final trigger, her thumb on the detonator. Now she whispered. The jungle lit up in flame and thunder. The fuel lines burst in a chain of explosions that roared through the mountain. Fire crawled deep underground, tearing through old tunnels, breaking stone walls and melting ancient machines. The scream that followed was not just sound, it was inside their heads, inside their bones, a final cry of something ancient breaking apart at the ridgeline. Kari stumbled into view, covered in ash alone. Rayan pulled her close as Lena scanned for signals. Nothing left, only silence. Lyra stood on the edge looking back at the black smoke rising from the burning ridge. Her eyes were tired, her face pale, but her voice was strong. He's gone, she said. But the pain he left behind will take longer to forget. Rayan placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll make sure no one else ever wakes something like that again. Behind them the fire still burned, and the forest finally exhaled, as if the planet itself had been holding its breath for far too long. The sky above the jungle was now a strange mix of ash and fading sunlight, thick clouds curling like smoke from a fire that had burned too deep for too long. Captain Rayan stood at the ridge edge watching the last of the black column rise into the air. The ridge was broken, scorched, and hollowed from within, like the very soul had been carved out of the mountain around him. The team sat in silence, their clothes torn, their faces marked by fire soot and memory. Kari stared at the jungle where Taran had vanished, her eyes locked on the horizon, as if waiting for a ghost. Lena checked the last vitals on her scanner, confirming that no signals, no life forms, no echoes remained in the tunnels they had destroyed. It's done, she said quietly. Rayan didn't answer. He looked back at Lyra, who stood barefoot in the soft dirt, her skin lit by the red sky. Her violet eyes watched the fire die, not with joy, but with something deeper, something like release. He was never the only one, she said finally, breaking the silence. There are others not like him, but like me, changed. Watched you, said. Kari turned toward her. Do you know where they are? No, Lyra said, but they'll feel what happened here. They'll feel it like a hole in the dark, a warning that humans fight back, that even the broken ones can burn. The hunters. Rayan stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to fight anymore. Not alone. Lyra looked up at him. Her voice was soft but sure. I'm not alone now. You didn't run. You stayed. You saw us when no one else did. The sound of a shuttle echoed in the sky above. The rescue team had finally reached them, responding to the emergency signal Lena had sent hours ago. A sleek silver vessel dropped through the clouds, stirring the air and flattening the grass with a deep hum as the ramp lowered. Medics and soldiers spilled out, scanning the area, eyes wide at the destruction. Some stared in disbelief at the smoldering mountain. Others focused on the team, offering help, water, and care, but Lyra kept her distance from them, watching their eyes as they looked at her. Some were curious, some afraid, others seemed unsure whether she was a child or a weapon, or both. One of the senior officers approached Rayan, reading the report on his wristpad. This is hard to believe, Captain. You're telling me you destroyed a biological hive and wiped out a hunter species built from stolen genetics using ancient mining fuel? Rayan nodded calmly. That's the short version. Yes, and the girl? The officer glanced at Lyra. She's the key to all of this. She's not a key, Rayan said firmly. She's a survivor. She's one of us. The officer frowned and walked away, still reading, but didn't argue. Kari helped Lyra climb aboard the shuttle. The seats were soft, the lights warm, but everything still felt too quiet. The silence after war was not peace. It was waiting. As the shuttle lifted off, the team looked down at the burning ridge, now shrinking beneath them. A grave without a name, a fire without a tombstone. Lena sat beside Lyra, watching her closely. You okay? Lyra thought for a long moment, then nodded. I'm tired, but not broken. You don't have to decide anything now, Lena said gently. But when you're ready, we can help you find the others, help them too. Lyra looked out the window at the stars beginning to shine through the smoke. I think I was born to be hunted, but now I'll become the one who finds. Rayan turned in his seat, hearing her words, and gave a small smile. Maybe the galaxy needs more like youth. Journey to the orbital station took hours, but felt longer. The team was debriefed, cleaned up, and treated for injuries, but no amount of medicine could erase the weight in their bones. They had seen something few others ever would, something that could not be forgotten. When the station director asked for a full report, Rayan handed it over with a single message attached. Not monsters, not weapons, just children. We either save them or we become what we fear. The reports spread fast through military channels and humanitarian networks. Rumors turned into missions. Stories of other hidden camps, whispers of other lost ones, kept in dark places by those who thought no one would come looking. And somewhere out in the stars, a hidden ship moved in silence, its pilot small, young, with violet eyes, scanning transmissions, searching for signals of pain. She was not running anymore, she was hunting the hunters, and she was not alone now. The fire they had lit on that broken ridge had not just burned away a nightmare, it had lit a torch, and across the galaxy, others were starting to see the light.